Hey folks, and welcome to Solarcabin channel. I get a lot of questions about off-grid living, and one of the biggest questions is, why the heck do you want to live off-grid? Pretty much everybody in the U.S. at least lives on-grid. They live in houses that have electrical power for everything, and they have their water comes in through pipes that they never see that are underneath their roads. And they live with electrical heat, or they have natural gas that's piped in from somewhere under the streets that they never see, that takes care of all their utilities. And generally they also have big house payments or rent, and a lot of utility bills and things like that. Now my circumstances, I used to live like that. I actually lived in the big city for a while, working as a professional educator. And then circumstances beyond my control took over, and after a divorce and an illness, I had to make a change of lifestyle. And so I was basically broke and homeless, and so I needed to start over in life. I was in my 30s at the time, and so I was lucky enough to have inherited a small piece of property connected to family property. And so I moved back to my old family homestead. Nobody was living around here. Pretty much all my family had moved away to the city. And so I moved back to the old homestead property and wanted to just build a simple, small place, something for me, and maybe a girlfriend, and my son when he comes and visits and that sort of thing. I didn't want a big place. But the county here decided that the only way you could build a house and get connected to utilities is if you build a big, expensive house, and then they would hook up utilities. Well, I didn't want a big house. I didn't want the bills that go along with buying a house or building a big house, and I really didn't want the expense of utility bills. It was going to cost a lot of money to put in all the utilities that they wanted. It was going to cost me more than I wanted to even spend on my house. So circumstances beyond my control kind of forced me into choosing an off-grid lifestyle. And I wasn't educated to that. I wasn't familiar with it. And there wasn't a lot of books or information or anything to really study out there to do it. So I had to kind of just learn as I go along. And I can tell you, I made a lot of mistakes as I went along. Started out one way and then had to change and switch into different ways. So I ended up building a small, what they call a dry cabin. And I'm going to show you my cabin. You've probably seen some videos of it. But I built a 14 by 14 dry cabin under 200 square feet to get around the local codes, and because it's a dry cabin not hooked up to utilities, they couldn't control what I did on my place. And so I got around the county that way. And instead I invested in solar panels, and I started off, back then it was really expensive to get solar panels. The Harbor Freight 45 watt kit solar panels was about all that was available to people back then. And so, but over time, I had to learn how to use solar power, how to use wind power, and I also wanted to be as self-sufficient as possible, so I started gardening, started raising animals, and started working on my place to make it as self-sufficient as possible, because with my illness, I wasn't able to work a regular full-time job. I just wasn't able to anymore. So I wanted to start a small business, which I did. I started a pest control business, so that I could set my own hours and work when I wanted. It actually paid really good money as well. And I was also able to make some money from my homestead, raising animals and selling some of the stuff like that. But because I learned how to do off-grid living, I started also sharing some of my information on YouTube, and that led to writing books about off-grid living and sharing ideas for sustainable and self-sufficient living. And it actually turned into a nice little side business of writing books and making videos, that sort of thing, that has helped pay for my property taxes and the things that I don't produce on my own homestead, so that I've been able to actually semi-retire at around 49 years old. I was able to semi-retire and live a very nice, comfortable lifestyle for a guy my age. I'm able to go and travel and do the things, afford some toys and a few things like that, and live a nice, comfortable life. So what started out as kind of an accident that was forced on me actually became a really nice lifestyle. So that's why I got into off-grid living. And you know, I know a lot of people out there considering, should I go off-grid? Some things you need to know is that, you know, it's not always the most comfortable life. Some things that we do off-grid require some physical labor, you know, whether you're gardening or you're raising animals or things like that, building your own cabins. You're going to need to learn some skills in order to do that sort of thing. But off-grid lifestyle does not have to be all that different than when you live on-grid. I have electricity here. I have lights. I have, you know, a laptop computer. I have a TV. I have stereos. I have all those sorts of things that you have in your regular homes. Excuse me. The difference is that my electricity comes from solar panels and a wind turbine. That's the only difference. And it does require a little bit of effort to go out and sweep the snow off the panels, you know, if it's snowing. Other than that, and it can be sometimes a little bit of a hardship if I get 3 days of no sunshine. My batteries get drained down, and so I have to go easy on my power. I have a microwave. I have all the appliances that you have in your normal home. But when I run my microwave, I run it off of a generator. And I only use that occasionally, but I use the generator for running tools anyway, so that's not a big deal. For heat in my place, excuse me, instead of using a wood stove, because my cabin is small, I opted for propane, and I use propane for my heat, I use propane for my cooking, I use propane for my hot water, and propane is fairly cheap, and because it's considered a bastard gas that is, they would have to pump off anyway, or flare off, it actually is not bad for the environment to use propane. Okay, because it would have to, that it's a byproduct of oil drilling. They would have to produce it anyway. It would have to go somewhere, and so using it for your homesteads is actually cheaper than using wood, and a lot more comfortable for people that don't want to have to go out and haul wood. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to use wood stoves and haul wood, I'm all for that if you've got a local supply of wood. Here, it's hard and expensive to get wood, so I opted for propane. So other than that, my lifestyle is pretty much the same as everybody else's lifestyle, okay? Except that I was able to get rid of all the house payments. I don't have house payment. I don't have rent. I don't have utility bills. I pay for a little bit of propane. Yeah, in winter at times, you know, might run me a couple $100 for winter for propane. But other than that, I don't have any utility bills except for a phone and internet like everybody else has, and I have internet service here. So my lifestyle isn't all that much different than what yours is, except I try to keep all my bills. I eliminated everything so that I have no bills and no monthly payments, except for a phone bill. I do have a phone bill. Other than that, my lifestyle is pretty much the same as everybody else's, and I get to spend a lot of time adventuring. I spend a lot of time fishing, just going out and hiking and looking at things, and writing about my interests, of course, is also kind of a hobby that keeps me active and happy. And I enjoy this lifestyle. It has been a real change in my lifestyle that I was in a serious depression before I moved off-grid. And since I went off-grid and become self-sufficient, my depression is lifted. I feel much better about myself. I really enjoy the outside and nature life. And, you know, that in itself is worth a lot to me. So I hope that this encourages people that may be looking for a reason to go off-grid to consider this lifestyle. You can always go to my website and to my YouTube channel to get information. My website is simplesolarhomesteading.com, and I have lots of affordable, very affordable ebooks and books on there for all types of cabin plans, off-grid living systems, and ideas for how you can live this lifestyle. Now, people always ask me about what I'm doing on my homestead right now, so I'm going to show you next just a short video of what plans and projects I've got going on for this year. All right, folks, thanks for coming by. Have a great day.
Well, hey, folks, and welcome to Solarcabin channel. You know, I'm always getting a lot of questions and requests for views around my own homestead. People wanting to know what projects I'm working on, that sort of stuff. And, you know, I've done a lot of videos on my place, but I like to do an update once in a while and let you know what projects I'm planning on working on this year. So if you want to follow along with the videos, you can do that. And this is my homestead. And I have just under an acre here that is my property, and then I'm connected to about 15 acres of family property. This property was originally belonged to my grandfather way back in homesteading days, when they actually could homestead the land. He got this land and then split it off to his kids, and then my dad split it off to his kids. So over 200 acres was split down over time to a whole lot of family members. And that's my cabin back there. And one of my projects this year that I want to do is I want to fix this ditch bank. This is an old ditch bank. They don't use these ditches much except for overflow now. These used to be the main way we got water to our homesteads, but now this is just overflow because they use pipe systems. And I want to do something nice here. So what I'm going to do is probably plant this, prune it all down, and then plant this with wildflowers. And I really like the fence that I built in here, and so I want to decorate this up in front a little bit. And because it does get some water from overflow, I don't have to water it. And so I'm going to put a bunch of wildflowers in there. Perennials that will come back each year, sunflowers and all the natural wildflowers that will grow in there. And I want to fill that whole thing up with just flowers. So that's one of my projects this year. But a couple of other projects that I'm working on. Let's see. I'll tell you a little bit about my cabin for people who aren't familiar with it. This cabin was built about 2007. Built this for $2,000. Before that, I was living in an RV that I had a small cabin front built on. That got too cold in the winter up here because we have cold winters. So I built this cabin. This is 14 by 14, 14 to the peak, just under 200 square feet. And I live in this permanently, year-round, all the time. And you can see that the front porch, see that right front corner? It's kind of gotten out of wampus because I made the mistake of putting a hose out there and letting it run. And I soaked the ground so much that it settled on that corner. And so I need to pull my porch back up straight. The cabin hasn't settled at all, and this is built above ground. It's built on deck blocks, and it hasn't settled at all. But I made the mistake of getting that corner post wet and soaked, and it settled down. So I got to pull that back up. So that's one of my projects this year. So I got to fix that porch and pull it back up straight. Oh, good grief! You can hear my chicken back there. She just laid an egg, apparently. Now, this is my solar system. I use 400 watts, and this is the only electrical power that I have here. There used to be power on this property, but they wouldn't let me install power because I didn't build the code. They wouldn't let me install power, so I said, screw you, I'll put in my own power system. So I have a 400 watt solar electric system. These are 4 100 watt panels, and they go into batteries inside the cabin, sealed glass mat batteries. I've got 330 amp hour batteries inside, and this is all the power I need that powers my fridge, lights, appliances, lots of DC appliances, laptop, computer, and you know, all that kind of stuff. I run right off of DC, off of these 400 watt panels. And unless I get 3 days without sunshine, I usually have plenty of power here. Rarely have to use the generator unless I really have a real drop in sunshine. And I have these set at 45 degrees. I used to have the panels up there on the roof, as some of you probably remember, but it got real hard to shinny me out that window, and wasn't safe anymore for me to get out there on that porch, which probably also contributed to the porch being out of shape, because I had to shovel the snow off them. So I moved them down here on ground. I really suggest a ground mount for most people. For a small system, much easier to take care of. And you can just, the snow basically just slides right off, or with just a quick sweep, the snow melts right off of those. And so that's my system, and I'm set up on a 12 volt system. My other project this year is as you can see, my raised beds have kind of got out of shape. The boards are kind of popped loose at the corners because I apparently didn't do a very good job keeping them together. So I've got to fix these beds. I'm not going to tear them out because the wood's still good. It just needs to be propped back up in place. So I'm going to prop those boards back up, and I need to get some braces against them. So I'm going to get some of those surveyor stakes and go around my beds. That one there I've already tilled and raked in, and I've already got some of those wildflower perennial seeds. And I just scattered a whole bunch of them in there. That way I can get them started here next to the house, and then I can transplant what I don't want to leave in this bed. I'll transplant out to that front ditch area out there. And so that's the plan, is I got to fix up both of these raised beds. This one here, of course, will be my salad garden, which I always raise every year. And then those pots, which used to belong to my mom, they're very old wash tubs. Those always get tomatoes put in them. And there's old Tazzy Dog. How you doing this morning, Tazzy Dog? That's my adventure dog, Tazaroo. And she goes everywhere with me. She goes hiking, camping, fishing, and a good general all-around companion. Yep. And so, just a little look. Now, I do have a camper back there that I use, but it's kind of big and hard to get into the places that I like to go. So that's why I'm going to build this Bardo camper. And then I can tow it behind my Jeep that I got there, as you can see. I can tow it behind my Jeep or behind my small pickup back into places where you can't get a full-size camper into, because I like to do some rough camping. And I've been just kind of landscaping. I want to put in some more fruit trees, maybe some nut trees in this front yard here. And just doing general landscaping is what I'm going to do. Now, that's my solar composting toilet out there. That's the composter. And the sunlight heats that up and evaporates off all the moisture. If you're interested in that, there's a video on my website or on my channel that you can go and look and understand how that works. And my other toy I got this last year, this Coleman CT200 off-road mini bike. And I've had motorcycles my whole life, but with my knees and my back, it kind of got hard for me to hold up a big motorcycle. So I opted for one of these mini bikes, and it's actually turned out to be a really fantastic bike, because I can take this with me camping or wherever I'm going to go. I can just lift it up by myself, put it on the back of the truck and take it with me. Or go out here. I ride out here in the country just riding around on trails, take the dog. And I even have a trailer for it, which you can see back there. I bought a bike trailer and then adapted that so that I can hook that to this mini bike. And I can actually put my camping gear in there. Or what I do is I throw Taz's bed in the back of that little trailer, and she rides in the back while I tool along, and then I unhook the trailer wherever I'm going, and we go out chasing rabbits or whatever, hiking and sightseeing. So I really enjoy that. That and my Jeep are both painted in camouflage colors. So, you know, I do a lot of off-road and just playing around in the dirt. So those are my toys. Anyway, that's my plan.